welcome to the Press Box. My name is Melissa Ponzio, and for the next 30 minutes, I'll be your host. With me, as always, Jay and Ty. How you guys doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good, just fine, thank you. We're going to start things off with the NBA Finals. Now, what are the keys to winning these games for these teams?
I really think after looking at that last game with Phoenix and Seattle, composure in these games. Phoenix is a type of team where if you don't keep your composure and make a lot of mental mistakes, they're a team that can really capitalize on that. Here it is, George Karl for Seattle had this really outgoing, aggressive type play. Well, all that led to was 64 free throw attempts for Phoenix. Seattle shot 50% in that final game. Phoenix only shot 41%, but they had the game easy going away. So I think composure, Jay, is going to have a real big part in this game. And the mental thing, the mental mistakes, and who can execute their offense and defense.
That's true. Part of the reason Phoenix won, too, was the rebounding advantage. When you shoot less of a lower percentage than your other team and get more rebounds, you get more shots and you win the game that way, too. But I wanted to talk about the format of the finals, if you don't mind.
Okay.
You know, it switches. I don't know if our viewers know. It switches to 2-3-2 now in the finals. First 2 games in Phoenix, then 3 in Chicago, and then 2 back in Phoenix. And I think that this really helps Chicago Bulls because, you know, they're not a bad road team, so they could easily split in Phoenix those first 2 games. But then, see, Game 5 is back in Chicago instead of in Phoenix where it should be. In any 7-game series, the pivotal games are 2, 5, and obviously 7 is the decisive game. But 2 and 5 need to be in the home court team's building because those are pivotal games. And the way the format's set up, it's Game 5's in Chicago. So if Chicago splits, they could win 3 in a row and the series will be over.
Oh, wait a minute, Jay. Now, both of these teams won on the road when they played each other this year. And I just don't see any team beating the other one 3 times in a row, no matter where the game is played. Personally, I think this is going to go 7 games. I like the format. I like it a lot. I think it puts gives us a different look and maybe some different strategy here. But really, with what happened this year, no, I really like the 2-3-2 format. I think it'll.
Well,
I think it'll add something.
You said no one was going to win 3 games in a row. Well, the Bulls beat the Knicks 4 games in a row. And
well, that was the Knicks.
Without the advantage of having 3 straight home games. So, you know, it's a finals. I just don't think 3 straight home games in the finals is a fair advantage for the other team, especially considering Phoenix is supposed to have the home court advantage. But they have to play 3 straight final games on the road. That's a tough assignment for any team.
Well, look at it. If it's even going towards the end, I mean, the 2 final games are in Phoenix. So
if it goes back there, they may have the
I think it's going to go 7. I think it'll go back there.
Okay, well, I'd like to remind our viewers that we are live, and if you want to call in with any questions or comments, the number here is 873-6713. Which team has the advantage with the bench?
I think that this is going to be most crucial for Phoenix, and the reason being is because Sabalas is hurt. And what Paul Westphal has to do is to get contributions from players like Danny Ainge and Oliver Miller. Those are the types of players that can really help them win games. For Chicago, the guys that help them win games are the 2 big ones, of course, Jordan and Pippen. After that, they may get some help from some of their starters. But for Chicago, winning games and helping them the most are those 2 main guys. Phoenix gets a lot of contributions from a lot of players, and some of those come off the bench. So I think that's who should have the advantage.
Jay?
So Sabal's injury is definitely going to shorten Phoenix's bench. And Miller, you know, you make a good point. Miller's going to be tested in this thing. And I think someone sat here earlier in the year and said Miller was going to be a bust, right? Ty, you flat out told him he was going to be a good NBA player. But as far as the bench, you know, your point about Pippen and Jordan, you know, the game's going to come down to those 2 versus Barkley and KJ. And, you know, the bench, it could be a factor, but if Jordan scores 80 points, you know, it's going to be hard to stop the Bulls. And if Barkley has 50 points and 25 rebounds, it's going to be hard to stop the Suns. So, you know, the bench could be a factor, but I think the keys are definitely the star players and what kind of games they have.
Yeah, one thing I think you're going to see Paul Westphal do is to change people double-teaming Jordan. This, in no way does he want him to be able to get the ball, be one-on-one with someone, and then start making a move and for Chicago to clear out his own. I think you're going to see Phoenix using their good athletes, people like Marley and even Barkley and Kevin Johnson, coming out and helping on Jordan, and also Richard Dumas. Someone's going to need to double-team him, and they have several players to do that. And I think we're really going to get into some good coaching strategy here, and I like to see what Phil Jackson's going to do to neutralize that.
Yeah, coaching, that could be a determining factor in a series. You know, both coaches, I think, have the exact opposite idea of what to do. You know, the Bulls coach, Jackson, he's going to try and shut down Phoenix, okay? And I think Westfall, he's going to try and outscore Chicago, you know? So you have a classic matchup, offense versus defense. And in the strategy sense, same thing goes. Each coach is at different ends of the spectrum.
I'll agree with that. Phoenix did average higher scoring games this year by about 6 or 7 points a game.
All right, well, we are live. If anyone wants to call in, the number here is 873-6713. One thing that I did want to hit on, there's a new book coming out about Michael Jordan's gambling habits. And do you think that this personal thing may factor into his playing ability?
Not at all. When Michael Jordan wants to play basketball, I mean, he is on. And a lot that has something to do with that is the help he gets from players such as B.J. Armstrong, Paxson, and, of course, Pippen. And against New York, there were really great contributions from some of those guys in Game 3, and that caused Pat Riley to change his strategy and to try and concentrate on some of those other players, and then Jordan lit it up for over 50 the next game. So, no, I don't think that book will have any effect.
Oh, I do. For the reason you just said. Like you said, when Jordan wants to play, it's impossible to stop him. And I think the book coming out at this time and people questioning his integrity has made him sort of make it a mission to do this three-peat thing, to coin a phrase.
So you think it's going to be like an incentive for him there, and so you think it's going to help?
Yeah, well, what you said, when Jordan wants to play, you know, he's unstoppable. And I think this book is going to make him more motivated, more focused on the basketball part of it, so that people judge him on basketball and not by his trips to Atlantic City or his golfing wagers.
Well, you mentioned him being so hooked on this three-peat. Do you think that might factor in negatively, like if he's just going for it so much that it might affect him?
Well, yeah, if there's a player that can play under pressure, it's Michael Jordan. So, no, I really don't think so.
No, it'll only be a motivating factor. I don't think it'll detract, because no team since the Celtics in the 50s or 60s or something like that, before I was born, has won 3 in a row.
Okay. What about Phoenix lack of side inside? Do you think that will hurt?
I think that's going to cause Paul Westphal to make some changes. If Richard Dumas, who he is going to start in the championship series, Chicago, I think, will have a definite height advantage inside when they post up Grant against Barkley. There are several inches of an advantage there for Chicago. I think that what he might have to do is have Tom Chambers come off the bench. And Chambers started Game 7 against Seattle and played 29 minutes and made a pretty big contribution for them in that game. So I think Chambers is going to be a big key for Seattle, or rather Phoenix, especially with the loss of Sabalas.
Yeah, but the lack of height on Phoenix is made up for in the bigger players, Barkley, Miller, and West. These guys are huge, and traditionally, when Barkley was on Philadelphia and they played the Bulls, Horace Grant drove the assignment of covering him. And Grant's taller than him, but Barkley ate him alive because he's more of a position player, and he's a lot stronger than anybody the Bulls have ever gone up against. He's just a monster underneath. I just can't believe that in Game 7 against Seattle he got 24 rebounds.
Oh, Charles has this dirty habit of eating a lot of people alive.
So to answer your question, I think the increased width of Phoenix will help for their
lack
of height.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what do you think about the Bulls' experience? How will this factor in?
Experience, I think, is so important in the NBA playoffs and the championship series. However, if there's been a team that's been through a whole lot, it's been Phoenix. I mean, they were really tested against Los Angeles in the first round. They went 7 games there. They played San Antonio well. They finished them off, I think, convincingly.
Oh, yeah.
And then, again, they go into another pressure-packed 7-game series with Seattle. So Phoenix has felt the heat this year. They felt it all along. And as time goes on, I think they may have a tendency to get a little more relaxed and get more focused into their game, other than feeling the pressure that, well, we had the best record. No one really gives us the respect we deserve. And here it is. We're struggling with some of these teams right now, and now that burden's off. They've reached the finals.
Yeah, well, I think experience is going to play a big factor. I think Chicago definitely will have an advantage. You know, that'll be their most striking advantage is the fact that they They've been to, I think, 3 in a row, even though they won 2. Didn't they lose in the finals the year before they won it? And well, they've been to pressure games a lot more than the Phoenix players, and so yeah, that'll definitely help Chicago.
Yeah, Phoenix hadn't been to a final since 1976, back in the days of Gar Hurd.
Yeah.
Okay, before we make some predictions, what about Charles Barkley versus Michael Jordan? Do you think there's going to be like pressure on to see who's the best man in the NBA? Do you think that's how Charles is looking at it?
They may have a little game between. There may be some type of little mental thing there, but these guys know that this is the NBA championship, and they're going to do what's best for their team. So that's going to be their first priority. So if there is something like that, I think it may come at an insignificant time.
Although I think that the fact that Jordan did not win the MVP player this year, Barkley did, that could be another motivating factor for Jordan to score 75, 80 points. You know? I mean, 50s and 60s are no longer eye-openers.
Exceptional,
yeah,
right.
exactly.
Well, we have a phone call. Hi, caller, you're on the air. Hello?
Hello?
Yes?
Yes, my name is Ricky, and I was calling. I would just like to know how do you feel about the hiring of Leonard Wilkins, and what do you think the Hawks need to improve their team?
Okay.
All right, thanks for the call. First of all, I didn't think the Hawks needed to start with the head coach. I think the Hawks needed to start with the general manager. I don't like the job Pete Babcock has done, and it's up to the general manager to pick the coach of his team. And he has not gotten quality players. I mean, here it is during a draft one year. Travis Mays was available. They go over him. They don't take him. They take Ramil Robinson and end up running Ramil Robinson out and then trading for Travis Mays. I mean, that's the type of merry-go-round these guys are on. And then here it is. They had Kenny Smith on the team at one time, a great guard out of North Carolina, and they just ran him off. And now here he is. He's playing very well for Houston. So I really doubt the quality of Babcock being able to tell who good basketball players are and making deals and using the draft. I just don't like that. And it's up to Stan Kasten to make those decisions and picking his general manager. And if he can't do it, then you need to get a new president.
Yeah, I think as far as the Hawks hiring Wilkins, they were out to get the best established coach available. And obviously Wilkins, I think he's the second best coach in the history of the game. So they did that all right. But if you remember in his press conference, he said sometimes you got to take a step back before you take 2 steps forward. So I think they brought Wilkins in here to clean house. So you can't judge Wilkins in his first couple of years. I think he'll be adjusting the personnel, like Ty said, and then we'll see. When he gets his players in place, we'll see what kind of job Wilkins does. However, it's the same division that he's coached in for the last 6, 7 years, and he couldn't get the job done with a far superior, talented team in Cleveland. So I don't think that the Hawks are going to be any better just because they have a better coach.
I think if they get 45 wins coming up in the next 2 years, I think that'll be considered a major accomplishment. But this team has CBA basketball players on them. I mean, I just don't see these guys playing for other teams, and here they are, they're playing for the Hawks. So
Right.
I think there's really a talent problem there.
Okay, well, we have another phone call. Hi, caller, you're on the air.
How you doing, today?
Fine, how are you?
I'm fine.
Good.
Hey, look, I just had a question and a comment I want to make. First of all, my question. Generally, when you in the past, when you get any team in any sport that has there's won at least 2 championships in a row, like the Bulls have, generally have a lot of superstar teams. I mean, not superstar teams, but a lot of superstar players. Like when the Lakers did, they had Magic and all of them. Same thing with Detroit. That's recently. But I want to know, what do y'all think? Well, how do y'all think that people will look at this Bulls team if they do win it for the 3rd time this year? I mean, will they be looked at as a dynasty team, or just maybe a team that just played well against whatever? You know what I mean?
Right. I know what you're saying.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I know what you're saying, and to answer that question, I'd say yes. If they win 3 in a row, yes, they will be considered a dynasty. The reason being is that in the future years going ahead, when you do see a team showing greatness coming up with really good young players, they'll sit there and compare them to those Michael Jordan Chicago Bull championship teams. So yeah, when you sit there and compare potentially great teams to a particular team that made an accomplishment like that, then yeah, I would consider that a dynasty. I mean, you still hear the John Wooden UCLA teams being mentioned in some comparisons, so yeah.
Except the one thing the Bulls fans will be at odds with is they will be. If they win 3 in a row, you could definitely say they're a dynasty in the NBA. But the average fan will always say, yeah, but they had Michael Jordan. And so it's going to be Michael Jordan won 3 straight championships. And the other players will probably be forgotten 10, 20 years from now. Don't you think?
Well, he's
point.
part of the
That's a
team,
good
so.
Yeah, but I mean, they'll always,
right.
rather than say the Bulls were a dynasty, they'll say Michael Jordan won 3 straight championships.
Well, look at this. I mean, UCLA could say the same thing. I mean, they had Bill Walton, so.
Yeah, but they won like 12 years in a row. He was only there 3 years.
Yeah, well, that's true.
We have another phone call. Hi, caller, you're on the air.
Hi, I'd just like to say, I love your show and everything. And
Thank
I was
you.
wondering,
Thanks.
do you think there's any truth behind the rumors of Madonna and Charles Barkley?
No. In fact, I saw on the news last night, Charles was on an interview, and he made a point of saying, I only met the woman once, and get off my back because nothing's going on. So there was no truth to those rumors.
However, I thought he had her watch the New York-Chicago series as an advanced scout.
There you go.
Thanks for your call. Let's move on to predictions.
Well, I already said I think the series is going to go 7 games, and Phoenix was my pick at the beginning of the year. No reason to change it now. I'll go with the Suns.
Yeah, I also said at the beginning of the year that Phoenix would probably win because of the fact that they're the best team in basketball all year long. But now that I've watched Chicago play in the playoffs, they're a different team than they were in the regular season. They're just a different team. They've stepped it up a notch, and with the format favoring Chicago with 3 straight home games, I'm kind of leaning towards picking Chicago in this thing.
Okay.
That's okay. You can change.
Well, but this way, no matter who wins, I can say, I told you so.
Right, exactly. And we have another phone call. Hi, caller, you're on the air.
Hi, my name is Stuart Rhodes. Okay,
Hi.
earlier you were talking about if Chicago three-peat, would they be considered as a dynasty?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that how could they actually be considered as a dynasty when they haven't won a game without Michael Jordan?
Bringing up
That-
your point.
Yeah, that was the point I made, that most fans will say they're not a dynasty, they had Michael Jordan. But when you think about it, you need more than one player to win 3 straight championships. So your knowledgeable fan will say the Bulls are a dynasty. The average fan will say, no, they had Michael Jordan.
And Michael Jordan may go down as being argumentatively the greatest player to play the game. I mean, it's hard to say that,
Right.
but sure, you could go out there and say that and have a lot of facts to back that up and support that argument. But then Boston had these great teams, and they had Larry Bird, and Los Angeles had these great teams, but then they did have several good players. I mean, you're talking about Irvin Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and James Worthy, and also even Byron Scott. So, but there is always that one really great player on these teams that are sometimes compared to dynasties.
Well, and Jordan is definitely that. And we have another phone call. Hi, caller, you're on the air.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes, my name is Eugene Kendrick,
Hi.
and I know this is NBA basketball season and everything, and I like to say I am a Bulls fan. But I was just wondering what's wrong with the Braves, and do you feel the signing of Dione Sanders? I just know that was a kind of a funky situation going on with the Sanders and Nixon things, and I just wonder, do you think that the signing of Dione Sanders has played an effect on the Braves on the turmoil they've been having lately?
Okay, thanks for your call.
Jay, go ahead and hit on that first.
Yeah.
I think you're right. The Deion Sanders thing, that really shook the Braves up. Now Nixon isn't even playing, I guess because they're trying to trade him. And, I said here last 2 weeks, sat right here and said, Otis Nixon is the best defensive center fielder, maybe Andy Van Slyke's in that category, but Otis is a great center fielder, and he's the premier leadoff man in the National League. And I just didn't understand the Braves going to Deion Sanders. They don't need the stadium full anymore. I mean, obviously Sanders has more crowd appeal than Nixon. And I think the Braves, there might be a little turmoil now in the clubhouse with Sanders getting so much money as a part-time player. So I agree with you. I think that, like you said, this is a funky situation. And the Braves are going to have to handle it. The best thing the Braves have going for them is that it's still early in the season. They have over half the season to deal with this problem. And I'm just hoping and praying that they don't trade away Otis, because I think Dion's 0 for 18 since they put him in the lineup.
Right.
But the Braves did gain a half game this afternoon because the Giants lost.
Well, I do like the move. I think it does create some stability. I think that Dion's the man that they want to play and stick out there. One of the ongoing problems has been them wondering, well, who's going to sit out? Well, I think Bobby Cox has made that decision now. He says my 3 outfielders are going to be Gant, Dione, and Justice. He's going to stick them out there and let them play, and that's that. And unfortunately for Otis Nixon, he's the man left out. But I think I like the move of playing Sanders. I just think that he's just an exceptionally gifted athlete. I think he could be one of the leaders in the National League in runs scored, and he's an excellent defensive outfielder. He may not be able to get the balls like Nixon can, but he's got a much stronger arm.
Aren't they looking long-term, too? I mean, Nixon is older, and maybe they're looking
They don't.
long-term.
Okay, that's a good point, except that they don't have to look long-term. They've been in the World Series 2 years in a row. They need to look at, like, the game tonight. I
Right.
mean, that's what's most important to them.
I agree.
Another franchise may maybe have a long-term decision in mind. But to me, the Braves are right here, right now. It's to take a phrase
Coin a
from,
phrase.
Yeah, from George Allen said the future is now?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Braves' future is right now. They have to do something right now. And I really think that that it's kind of shaken up some of the players, although they'll get their head back together and play better down the stretch.
We
I
hope.
really think. I do. It's like they're a lot better than they're given credit for, because
Okay.
of the fact that they've won 2 National League championships in a row. They're supposed to be in first place 10 games ahead. Well,
Right.
that just doesn't happen.
Right, well, we have another phone call. Hi, caller, you're on the air.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, this is Walter. I just totally disagree with the gentleman in the middle.
Okay.
I think that Deion Sanders is a much better baseball player than Otis Nixon. Otis Nixon, all he does is slap at the baseball. He can't hit. He couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat. He bunts the ball down the line. He cost us the World Series last year, bunting the ball with 2 strikes. That was not brave. That was not brave at all. I totally disagree with the man in the middle, okay? And I totally agree with the guy on the right.
Okay.
The Braves may be here and now, but I got an old saying about Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders, I made up a little song. It's called Mr. Double, Mr. Double. He's the man that starts the trouble, okay? And the lady on the left,
Yes,
you got it going on.
thank you very much. Thank you for your call, and how do you respond?
Well, I mean, like everyone has their opinion, okay? And he likes Sanders just like Ty over Nixon. But the thing is Sanders isn't hitting right now, okay? Maybe if he plays as long as Nixon, he'll learn how to slap at the ball and bunt. The guy made a good point about bunting in the World Series. But the reason Nixon bunted was because he's the best bunter that I think that has ever played. Well, outside of Rod Carew, he's probably second best bunter. That's what his forte is, and that's how he tried to get a base hit. That's the only reason he bunted. I don't think he was unbrave or whatever the guy said. It was his forte, so he chose to try it. But as far as Sanders, if he's going to play in center field and bat leadoff for the Braves, then he needs to learn how to walk, learn how to take pitches so the other guys in the order can see how the pitcher's pitching, and he definitely needs to make contact right now.
Hey, well, I think there's a lot of players that aren't making contact. When you look at the batting averages of these teams, I mean, everyone's been picking on Terry Pendleton. He's struggling. Justice is struggling with his average, but his pop is there. He's got a lot of home runs, so I'm really not going to complain about that. There's Sid Bream, who I think is hitting like around 220. The Braves catchers, the catching combination, I don't think they're hitting over 220 combined. So there's just a lot of lack of production, and they need to pick it up.
Well, we have another phone call. Hi, caller, you're on the air. Hello?
This
Hi.
is Jamila Walker. I have a question for the person in the middle.
Okay.
I think that he's a very good guy.
Who, Deion Sanders?
Yes.
Okay.
And I have a question for the guy on the end.
Okay.
When you was talking about the Braves,
Uh-huh.
Go ahead.
when you was talking about the Braves, I didn't get what you were saying because I was in the restroom. Could you repeat what you were saying?
We can.
I couldn't hear that.
I couldn't either. I'm sorry. If you want to
Okay.
call back and talk just a little louder, because we didn't get the question, and we'll be happy to answer. So
I wish I could have heard it. The guys in the back liked it.
Yeah.
Since we're on baseball, let's talk about the Dodgers for a second, because they're just fabulous now. What's going on?
Yeah, they're on a little bit of a resurgence here, and it's funny. The Dodgers' forte has always been starting pitching, and here it is. They don't have a starting pitcher, I don't think, with an ERA under 3, but they have found contributions from players to pick things up. I mean, Worrell got hurt, and so here it is. Jim Gott's come in, and he's taken over the closer's role. They've gotten their young catcher is batting .333, and has a little bit of pop, as we saw in the Braves' most recent series with them.
Piazza.
And Corey Snyder's batting around .320, .325, and of course there's Brett Butler.
Wait, there's the key. They took Strawberry out of the lineup, put Corey Snyder in. Strawberry's been struggling, and now the fans hate him, and that's a weird situation. But to answer your question, the Dodgers are just playing over their head right now. They'll fall back through the standings. In fact, they've already started. I think they're in 4th place now. They got up to 2nd. Now they've fallen back to 4th. So I don't think the Dodgers are that good.
Okay.
Do you?
I think they're going to fall as well.
Okay. Well, we have a phone call. Hi, caller. You're on the air.
Hi. I was wondering, I saw recently that Terry Pendleton is the only Brave leading the All-Star votes. I was wondering why Jeff Blauser isn't being considered more. Is it because people don't know him as much, or
Exactly.
what is it?
That's exactly
that's
right.
a great question, but here it is. The Braves are on a superstation, and Blauser's seen all the time, so...
Yeah, but it's a popularity contest.
Well, true.
And it's not really, you're not voting for the best player, you're voting for the most popular player, and Blauser's just not as popular. I mean, he's going to make the All-Star team, and I'll tell you what, everyone in Atlanta needs to get down there to the stadium, or I think you can get ballots in USA Today, and punch that Jeff Blauser name out. And Lemke, too. If you look at the ballot, Lemke's the best second baseman on the ballot this year, but he's nowhere near leading vote getter. But, yeah, Pendleton, I don't think he deserves to be in an All-Star game this year because he's in a little bit of a slump. But in response, if I can say something to what Ty said about Pendleton, you know, when they got Pendleton, he was a lifetime 270 hitter. And then he hit 300 for 2 years. Okay, now all the Braves fans expect him to hit 300. Well, he's not a lifetime 300 hitter, okay? So chances are he may hit 240, 250 this year, and we just need to hope that that helps the team and not constantly expect Pendleton to hit 300 because he's not a lifetime 300 hitter, and I don't think he ever will be because he's not as fast as your 300 hitters that constantly beat out the infield hits. He's not going to get any infield hits.
Well, something I noticed about Pendleton that really concerns me is that several times this year I've seen him up with a man on third base in less than 2 outs and doesn't get the run in, and that's very uncharacteristic of him. I just wonder if he swings a war club up there. That's a big bat for him, and he may have lost some bat speed. So he's 33 years old. Time, I think, is catching up with him.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I think the Braves, I would even like to see him sometimes put Chipper Jones at third base in the minors and see how he handles it.
Okay, let's move on to the Stanley Cup.
Okay, Jay.
It's over.
I think it's over, too. I think Montreal's going to finish these guys off in Game 5. I thought it would go 6. Jay, I really thought that when this started, and we watched that game together last week,
yeah.
and I just thought this was so uncharacteristic of Montreal. I thought that what they needed to do was just hunt Wayne Gretzky. I thought Jacques Demers needed to pick 2 people on his team and have one of those persons out on the ice whenever Gretzky was out there and just flag him down and try and hit him whenever possible. Well, they didn't do it in Game 1, but they've been doing that pretty well in the most recent games, although he did have a pretty good game Saturday night. However, Guy Carbonneau, I think, has been an outstanding player for Montreal in this series and trying to keep him down.
Okay, a quick response.
Yeah, although I don't think Montreal's really dominated like a lot of hockey purists will say they had because you got 3 straight overtime games. I mean, those games could have gone either way. And, you know, they're good, and they have adjusted to keeping a man on Gretzky, but he's still playing very good, so they're not really covering. But your comment about Guy Carbonneau, he is outstanding 2-way hockey player, and he could be the difference here in this series.
I'll tell you what, another guy who's been at the right place at the right time has been John LeClair. He's gotten 4 goals in the playoffs, and 2 of them have been overtime winners.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank everyone for calling in and hope to see you next Tuesday. And don't forget to tune in at 7:30 to Homemade, and we'll see you again next week. Thanks a lot.